Okay, well, strictly speaking, the tree cutting and the tree trimming doesn't apply in this case because the board isn't being asked to make any decision that either allows or disallows tree trimming or tree cutting. The City of North Bay already has within its power the ability to pass tree cutting bylaws. Most municipalities in Ontario that are concerned about this have passed those bylaws. North Bay should consider it as well. And then it would apply to absolutely everybody who has a tree in North Bay, not just one landowner. What this case was about was simply this: who gets to own Block 156 until such time as Mr. Wallace is finally ready to dedicate it to the Conservation Authority or the city. He's already indicated he wasn't going to keep it forever, but he didn't feel that he should have to be forced to dedicate it at a time earlier than he wanted to, at a time that was contrary to an agreement he had already signed with the city, and when such dedication exceeds that permitted under the Planning Act.
In terms of the agreement, so much of it is to be turned over as portions of Ken Rita Drive are developed? Am I understanding that correctly?
Yes, under Mr. Wallace's interpretation of the agreement, which frankly I have to say is simply what the words on the page say. There's no stretching of interpretation here whatsoever. It said that the parkland that was south of the lots on Ken Rita Drive would be dedicated as those lots on the south side of Ken Rita Drive are developed. So until that happens, that portion of the parkland doesn't get dedicated. So if you're building on Surrey Drive, for example, there is no parkland dedication. Had the city honored that agreement, it would have gotten all of Block 156 over time exactly as that agreement provided. But they didn't honor that agreement, in Mr. Wallace's opinion.
In his opinion, what has the city said? You have to turn it over now?
Yes, yes. He brought forward, I believe, 5 lots for registration on Surrey Drive, which wouldn't have triggered any parkland under the agreement. And the city said that before we let you register those 5 lots, we want the rest of Block 156, to which Mr. Wallace sent many, many letters to the city and got many responses, all of which said, the city said, that agreement doesn't bind me. I can ask for more. And that troubled him greatly because this was an agreement signed by both corporations under seal. He thought that meant something.
And can I confirm that the city now has 8% of the land that was in question into this development agreement?
The number 8% is correct. It's actually 8.7%, but we're not going to quibble about percentages like that. The important thing is that it's 8.7% of the total 89 acres, not 8% of the total parkland they were ever going to get. So the law limits the amount the city can impose as 5%. Mr. Wallace has already dedicated 8.7% and had promised to dedicate up to 38%.
And still intends to do that, wants to do it in his own time.
Yes.
Can you explain to me, just for my sake, in terms of this case, it is about when this plot was going to be handed over and in what time and what fashion. However, there has been discussion about viewscape. Where does that play into this whole case?
Well, that's an excellent question. We expected that if we came to the Ontario Municipal Board asking them to make a ruling on the timing of the dedication of the block, that the Ontario Municipal Board would wonder, why are you coming here if it's already on a piece of paper? Why are you, the city, doing something different? Why are you, Mr. Wallace, now saying, I don't want to have to give Block 156 yet? We thought any person would want to know why this has happened. The evidence about viewscapes and the evidence about the breach of the agreement by the city in 2008 are just the backdrop. They're simply the explanation as to why we're here.
He wants, but there is some plan to trim trees in order to optimize the view up there.
Yes, but that permission already exists in a signed agreement with the city. And to be fair to the city, they're not residing from that part of the agreement. The debate is over, what do you have a view of? And the city is saying you only have a view of the far shore of Lake Nipissing, the Manitou Islands, and I suppose some of the water, not even all the water. And Mr. Wallace is saying, well, that's not what we had talked about in the past. We had talked about being able to see at night the twinkling lights of the downtown core. That was one of the things that made this area so attractive for the purchasers. So there's a debate on that. But even if you were to cut trees and trim trees in accordance with the city's understanding of the agreement, the evidence on the record is clear. Some, hopefully less and not more. Trees would have to be trimmed.
What would you consider a successful end to this appeal?
If my client wins,
And what exactly determines that? What,
the board would say that Mr. Wallace is not required to dedicate Block 156 at the choosing time of the city, but can dedicate it when he decides it's appropriate.
What happens if the city rules in favor of this, I'm sorry, the OMB rules in favor of the city? What is your next course?
Well, that's a good question. If the board rules in favor of the city, it means the condition remains the way it is, which means the next time Mr. Wallace comes forward to try to register a lot on a plan, even one lot on Surrey Drive, the city will no doubt say, I want all of Block 156, and we'll be back to fighting and arguing again. We won't be going back to the OMB because that will have already been done. But Mr. Wallace, I guess, has the option of saying, I'm not going to build any more lots, in which case the city can't force him to give Block 156. I don't think that's realistic, because this is his business, but that would be an option.